Welcome back to the Intentional Workplace, a podcast where we spend 15 minutes each week to talk about everything HR to improve your business. I'm Jacob Stone.
And I'm Maria Williams.
And this week, we're talking about why job descriptions are failing you. And this is something that I specialize in particular. And I go over this with clients. It's the very first thing that usually I go across is what's your job description look like when you're hiring, when you're scaling. I think too often we run into that issue of, well, I'm just going to Google X, Y, and Z job. I find a generic job description. I throw it in the chat GPT. I copy paste and there I'm posting it. And then I get inundated by 670,000 resumes within the first hour, none of which are even close to what I'm looking for. And so a lot of that goes down to what's your job description? What is it that you're looking for? So Maria, when you're in your experience, what's the structure, I should say, that when you're putting together a job description, what's that structure look like that they should format it in, that they should be looking for, that they should include to help eliminate all the fluff and generic stuff that really is irrelevant?
Yeah, one thing that I recommend is being really kind of crisp on the responsibilities. Often when job descriptions are created, it becomes just kind of like a laundry list of all the tasks that somebody can think about that,
Yeah.
the job is all about, and not in any particular priority order. It's just kind of like lay them all out. And often I see descriptions that are like 10 to 20 just tasks and responsibilities. One big thing that I find really helpful and I think can really get the job description much cleaner and focused is, instead of thinking about the tasks of the job, think more about the outcomes that you want to get from the candidate. So
Ooh, I like
instead of
that.
saying, I don't know, pulling certain reports and manage client relationships, something like that, it should be more like, this role is responsible for improving the client retention and blah, 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 but more outcome driven instead of just listing all the tasks. And priority order, because we all know that jobs, if you think about everything that a specific job entails, there's definitely one or two things that are most important in terms of the outcomes, and then other things that are part of the job but maybe not the most important part. So thinking about ordering a job description in that way too, and calling out the real important priority tasks first,
Right.
or outcomes first, and then the ones that are lower down. That's a easy one, easy
And I'm
fix.
gonna yeah, and I'm gonna make a very bold, maybe controversial statement here, and I tell everyone this too. Get rid of fluff and phrases like works cross-functionally. Everyone works cross-functionally,
Yeah.
you know, is
Also,
very
what does that really
collaborative.
mean in reality? Yeah.
Yeah, we're collaborative. Well, okay, everyone's I mean, if you're working in a company, unless you're a solopreneur, and even then you're collaborative, I mean, so words like it's just waste of space. It's just that's something that you can always tell they Googled it and threw it in chat or whatever it is. It's just so to your point, I like the idea of wording, not so much of like making a litany of tasks. You're gonna be doing this, this, and this. Um, but more what those outcomes or expectations, the results that we're expecting from this job. The other thing I like to think about is you should really think hard about what this job is, and that means defining the role. So before you even start a job description, define the role. What roles are we really needing? Do we really need, it's a project manager? Okay, but what does that mean? What kind of a
Mhm.
project manager? What kind of do they need certifications? They not, but also focus on the soft skills, the stuff that you're not necessarily gonna you don't think about automatically when you think of like this person needs to be a salesperson. Well, okay, when you think of a salesperson, they can, cold call, they can do this, they can, okay, but are they organized?
Mhm.
So we want someone that's going to be organized because they need to be able to track different accounts and that other kind of stuff. So organization, that would be a soft skill. You wouldn't necessarily see that on a resume, but with the job description is it should follow along throughout the entire interview process. These are actually personality traits, these are qualifications, these are skill sets that we are looking for, not just on your resume, but as a person goes through the process. This is the type of individual we are looking for to join the team. So cutting away that fluff, looking at and understanding what those soft skills are, what you're not going to automatically see, and are they going to, check all those boxes. The other thing I want to mention too is the arbitrariness of years of experience. That's a big one I always get. We're looking for someone that has 10 years of experience, and then you get someone that, applies and they have 8 years of experience, and they're going, "Oh, we don't need that person because they only have 8 years." It's like, well, what, okay, like what is, I could have lied and just put 10 years and you wouldn't have known the difference. So I think understanding that, like, a gap of something. So what I mean by that is I say it has to have 5+ years of experience. The reason why I put that 5 in there is because it takes away, like, I'm not looking for entry level, but I'm not looking for senior level either. So, but I'm okay with if you have 4 years, 3 years, it's just a marker. It's just like a benchmark, if you will, to gauge where someone is. So I'm attracting certain levels of talent. It shouldn't be an automatic disqualification. What do you think?
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. I agree, and I think we could really get into this here, but I mean, with certain tools and systems in place today, like if there's something, don't put that as a basic qualification where it would kick somebody out if they don't
Right.
have that. So I agree with that. It's kind of, you need to really think about, if you had a rock star that applied to that job with 4.5 years of experience, that has all the right behaviors, has all the right, like, would you hire that person? If yes, then you really shouldn't use that 5 years as that firm benchmark.
Oh, and
Um,
it gets me because they just, so many people disqualify really good candidates based on that,
I know.
and it just, I'm like,
Right.
you're cutting your nose off, and there's no
Yes.
reason for it.
And I think that ties into the outcomes kind of thing too. It's like, think about, what are you trying to get out of this role, and what are the outcomes? And I like thinking about this in terms of success profiles. And I often work with companies on developing success profiles for roles that can easily translate into job descriptions of what does success look like in this role, and and this can tie into performance too. What does meeting expectations mean for this role? What does exceeding expectations mean for this role? And if somebody was in this role after 6 months, what would it take for us to say they're successful in this role? Because
Right.
that's what you should be thinking about for the job description. Does it really matter the exact number of years of experience they have, or whether they can say that they're collaborative, or some of these other things? No, it needs to be very specific of what success looks like. So I think that's a good way to think about it often too.
Okay.
Another point that I have on this is, and sometimes it can be difficult in articulating in a job description, but it's possible, but certainly it's important during the interview process, is being very honest about what the role is and the challenges of the role. So
Mm.
I think sometimes job descriptions try to excel the role or sell the company and say all of the positive things, and sometimes the interviews kind of do the same thing, and that can really lead to a mismatch and a hire. So if the role is, just as an example, if the role is responsible for starting a team from scratch and building something from the ground up, and that's going to be hard, like that's not going to be an easy thing to do, call that out and say, this role requires building something from scratch, building a team, building a new process from scratch, or being honest about, this is a new role and we're still trying to figure it out, and that's the reality, and this is. So I think that honesty is really important, either in the description and or in the interview itself, before you bring somebody on, so that those expectations, which we've talked about a lot, are clear for the candidate and the company too, and that there's alignment there.
Yeah, and you can always change a job description, even like
Mhm.
through as you're starting to pull in candidates, where you might have posted X, Y, and Z, and you're like, oh wait, actually, I want to change this because I'm seeing a lot of candidates that have this, and I don't need that, and they're missing this part of it. You can always go back into wherever you posted it or whatever and change it and change the expectation. Um, so I think that's a good point as well. Um, the other I want to say like putting out the challenges. What are your thoughts on putting like salary requirements? I know this is some people like to do it, some people don't like to do it. This is the range I'm looking in. But bringing it back to an honest job description where you're putting out, okay, these are the challenges we're facing that are going to be in this role, but these are also the salary expectations and what our benefits are. What are your thoughts on putting that? Because I'm always for it, but I know it's kind of a hot button thing. Some people like
Yeah.
it, some people don't.
Yeah, that's a hot topic right now. There's states out there that require this now.
Right.
So it is a requirement now in some places to list the salary range, and but in some states it's not yet. But I think the trend is going towards more states, having this, as a requirement for job descriptions. But for the ones that it's still not required, I like it because it allows the company to really think about what it is. Well, yeah, to be honest about kind of the range and what they're paying, and it just brings in that transparency into this discussion, because if there are candidates out there that are way above that range, like they likely won't apply if they see that. And it kind of takes away some of the wasted time for those
Yeah.
types of situations. And I think just in terms of fair practices and all of that, I think it's a good thing to have, because we really should be paying, and we can have a whole nother conversation on this.
Oh yeah.
We really should be paying people based on the role, and what the role requires versus what they currently make or what their individual expectations are. So that forcing the company to think in that way of, this is what we're willing to pay for the role. This is what we should pay for the role. I think it's good to have it on there to be
Yeah.
transparent.
There's like nothing worse than not having it on there, and then you get into the second or third step round of the interview or the final interview and realize like this dude is looking for like 20K over what we have budgeted for, and no one's even talked to him about salary yet, because you're always coached as the candidate not really to talk about salary until you get the offer and see what they're going to offer. And unfortunately, a lot of the big headhunter firms, how should I say, they mislead, so they can try to I can just negotiate them down, or we can figure it out when we cross that bridge. And there's nothing worse than that. I really like this guy, but wow, is he way over budget. So I'm right there with you. I think, and plus it keeps everyone honest. It's transparent. It establishes a baseline of this is how we operate. We're always going to be upfront with you from the get-go.
Mhm. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And just another piece of advice, so just on that same topic, is um, it doesn't benefit anybody to try to make the job sound better or different than it is in reality.
Yeah.
So, really think that through when you're writing a description, and make sure that you're not trying to kind of phrase things as, for example, a job sounding more strategic than it is in reality. In reality, it's more tactical and operational. And then somebody comes in thinking one thing and it's not. So going back to that expectation point, it's the job description is the first thing that you need to get right in order to set the right expectations.
Yeah. Your interview process will absolutely break down if you don't get the job description right.
That's right. So great. Well, great topic. And thanks for joining us today. Tune in next week, where we'll be talking about professional development programs that organizations can put in place, and why they're important.
All right.
Alrighty.
We'll
Thanks.
see you.
Bye.